All right, everyone, welcome back. People watching on YouTube later, this is not going to be posted for like 3 or 4 weeks because we are starting G.K. Chesterton's The Everlasting Man. We're going to do 5 or 6 parts on this. So it depends upon how the discussion goes, that kind of thing. We're going to cover the first 40 pages. Anyone who is new to the class, in person, online, whatever, it's called Maple Syrup History because the maple syrup are the extra facts that we pour on the pancakes of normal analysis. Loretta, we've had so many discussions about this. You were once inspired to buy me a bottle of Vermont maple syrup, which became the emblem of this class.
I have another maple syrup story.
Please, can you please share it right now?
Did you know that maple syrup in Canada is nationalized and they have to sell it to one person?
Like one distributor, one national, it's like an oil company.
They store thousands and thousands of barrels of maple syrup. Well, somebody decided to go and steal it one time, and they stole like 9,000 barrels of maple syrup.
Dang. And got away with it, or what? Or were they busted?
They got busted eventually.
Well, that's crazy because there's a Nebraska guy. This is way off topic, but who transported like an enormous ox or something in his car, and he like removed the front seat, removed the windshield, and the ox. So I wonder, like, taking barrels of maple syrup, it's gonna be obvious. Like, all it's like strapped to your car somehow. I don't know how do they.
They get it in big trucks.
Big trucks, probably middle of the night. That's crazy.
He put an ox in his car.
He did. He got pulled over. He pulled over. I think. But the worst part was he got pulled over, and the cop was like, excuse me, sir, like, laundry list of violations, and the guy was like, what? Like, like I don't understand. Yeah, he's like, yeah. Nobody's like, I don't understand. I'm being pulled over. Like. Anyways.
Did he bring a scoop shovel with him?
Exactly. The car started off a car, and then it was like a septic tank. Yeah, right. All right, guys. So, anyways, yeah, I love doing this class so much. Maple syrup history is the larger theme. We're on episode 359 or whatever. We've been doing that for 7 years. This year has been, the play on the USSR CCCP spelling, Christian Classics class programming. Did a bunch of papal encyclicals. Last week we did Devotion to St. Joseph. All this again is online. You can find this on the channel, previous episodes if you want to kind of catch up. We have a couple encyclicals left. Most famously, we're going to do 2 parts on Rerum Novarum, 1891, Leo XIII, the invention, if you will, of kind of Catholic social teaching in the modern era. But without further ado, only 2 books. The other one is Walker Percy's Signposts in a Strange Land. This is our book for the next 5 or 6 weeks. I think it takes us into March even. How this works is, again, who cares what I think? And I sincerely mean that. I hope my analysis of some parts is helpful, but the most important thing is that you can do is you can read the book. You can be inspired to, wow, I should read this kind of good literature. And then what I like the most is the kind of peer-to-peer discussion stuff that we do over the course of the class, of the hour that we have. So let's get to it right away. Who has read Orthodoxy? Who has heard of Orthodoxy? Everyone yes, the knee-jerk reaction, right, exactly. If you read Chesterton, you read Orthodoxy. I mentioned this at Mass during the announcements and in general, that Orthodoxy is his post-conversion to Christianity book, but he's still an Anglican at that time, 1908. This, 1925, is his Catholic book, 3 years post-Catholic conversion. So, if you're looking for the more kind of mere Christianity, general stuff, sure, I understand why Orthodoxy is so popular. If you're interested more in Chesterton as Catholic theorist and how he was Catholic the last 14 years of his life, this book, I think, might be more for you. Also, Brad, I'll ask you if I could read your book in a second. At some point before the end of the stream, Brad has a book on cosmology, ontology, kind of basic questions of God's existence, right? The scientific proof for God's existence. Yeah. What page is it on? God's grandeur. And the guy quotes from Everlasting Man, the author does.
Yeah, here he's where he...
Perfect. Yeah. So and this is a great example of the perennial staying power of Chesterton's. He's the Prince of Paradox. He's so fond of this kind of thing. But the perennial staying power of some of his insights. So from this book, God's Grandeur, the Catholic Case for Intelligent Design. Catholic English writer and philosopher Gilbert Keith Chesterton rightfully recognized that humanity's distinctiveness lies with consciousness. The matter here is one of history, not of philosophy. It need not only be known, no philosopher denies the mystery, etc. The whole paragraph we're going to read from Everlasting Man over the course of our evaluation. But let me read that again, just the point from the author of this book. Catholic English writer and philosopher Gilbert Keith Chesterton rightfully recognized humanity's distinctiveness lies with consciousness. Thank you so much, Brad, for finding that. Anyone doesn't know, again, this gentleman's middle name is The, last name King, Brad the King. He's the king of this class. Thank you, Your Highness. You can't. He's already been lived up to, for real. The guy's absolute legend. And he proves this every class. That's exactly correct. In modern analytical points, modern Catholic discussions, so much of people who are like, well, Aquinas is too heady, or I've heard the 5 proofs, but breaking it apart, this becomes so much a manual for the basic understanding of what people are relative to the universe. Before I go through, hello George, before I go through the first 40 pages point by point, I have 25 points for you. Let me say that if there's one argument of part 1 of Everlasting Man, it's that we're aliens. That's it, that we're weird. That you can't look at us as only animals. The very minute you look at man as animal is the minute you see our distinctiveness, lying in consciousness and art and that kind of thing. Before I do finally dive in, who wants to, any points? Who wants to denounce me, praise me, make points about this book, anything? Different socks. I flipped out this morning. I was like, I can't find socks. Look how disgusting the shoelaces are. That's not tied. That's not tied.
But you have another pair of socks just like that one.
I bet I do, exactly. They're linked.
The dryer does.
Yeah, or the dryer does, like somewhere with the lint. Yeah, I don't know. I know it's unacceptable. I'm sorry, guys.
My socks don't match too, but
Yeah,
you can't tell.
But you're cool. I'm not. So
I'm not cool.
you're much cooler than I am. Okay, introduction. The plan of the book. Everyone has different copies. You know what's cool? You know what's actually cool, guys? This yellow book. This book. This is way better than the book copies you guys have. Right? Aesthetically, I gotta be honest. It doesn't matter what version you have or the page numbers. I'm interested in the ideas. Again, anyone who's here for the first time in these discussions, I often will read, let the author speak for himself or herself. Himself today, Chesterton, and then we discuss the points. Point number 1. The point of this book, in other words, is that the next best thing to being really inside Christendom is to be really outside of it. What does that mean? The point of this book is that the next best thing to being really inside Christendom is to be really outside of it. Right off the bat. Like, boom, what is he saying? We're going to talk about Christianity. We're going to talk about the way of the universe. Best way to understand everything is to be a Christian, is to be a Catholic, is to be in the church. But if you're not that, like, be way outside of it. That's second best. What is he talking about?
Perception.
Invincible ignorance.
Okay, that's a great point. That's a genius point. You're going to questions kind of like of salvation, right? I have the sacraments, extra ecclesiam nihil salus, never been repudiated, right? There's no salvation to the church. If I know this is Christ's church, the Catholic Church, I need to enter it. But if I'm worried about the state of my, my eternal destiny, the state of my soul, as we all should be, Philippians 2:12, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Maybe the next best thing is to be like a guy who can't even read in the middle of some desert somewhere. Then I have an excuse. That's not what he's getting at. Your point, you get A+, and take as many gold stars as you want. They're unlimited. That was a great comment. But what is he talking about here, just with like kind of biases and prejudices?
Well, from a personal perspective, because I was one of those, you look at things with fresh eyes. If you hear about things as a child, you think you know it, and you just kind of let everything just kind of go right past you, because, well, I already heard that. Whereas if you come in from the outside, everything you hear, everything you learn is like fresh, and you have to think about it and analyze it. And
Yeah, that's excellent. Point number 5, I'm jumping ahead for me. I'm on the introduction, page 13 of this volume. Point number 5. As always, I want the author to speak for himself as much as possible. Quote, now the best relation to our spiritual home is to be near enough to love it, but the next best is to be far enough away not to hate it. It is the contention of these pages that while the best judge of Christianity is a Christian, the next best judge would be something more like a Confucian. Okay, so let's stop there for a second and right. You're exactly correct. Everything you said was this perfect answer. Fresh eyes, all that. Christ says, I think it's Revelation 3:16. I think that's the chapter and verse, but if it's not, I'm sorry. But it's something about like lukewarmness. Everyone's heard that. Be hot or cold. If you're lukewarm, I'll speak out of my mouth. Points 1 and 5 of my very arbitrary numbers, that this is on page 13 is not arbitrary, it's a fact. 1 and 5 are just my made up numbers, who cares? Maybe you found 70 points in these first pages, maybe not. But he's saying the best thing is to be on fire for God, is to be in relationship with Christ, is to be in reception of sacraments, be in a state of grace, is to love the church. If you're a Confucian, if you're a Muslim, if you're wholly a nun, right, as Bishop Barron says, the N-O-N-E, kind of holy secular, you might judge Christianity on its own merits. And that's fair enough. The worst possible thing you can do is be this lukewarm, fallen away, oh, I was raised Catholic, former Catholic, lapsed kind of person. That's what he's roasting right off the bat. So he says here, they will complain that a sermon cannot be interrupted and call a pulpit a coward's castle, though they do not call an editor's office a coward's castle. Chesterton sometimes is too playful. Like his wife should have slapped him more often. Really, sometimes, he's so deep and stuff. He's really obnoxious at times. And I will 100% admit, like, my favorite Bible passage is St. John the Baptist about Christ. You know, I'm unworthy to loose the thongs of his sandals. I'm nothing compared to this guy as a writer, as whatever. God bless him. Fine, and all that kind of stuff. He's too like cutesy sometimes. Let me turn every phrase. It's obnoxious. But what he's saying here is like the lukewarm people who he's denouncing will be like, oh man, isn't that like total BS? How these church authorities just claim to this like authority, these priests and whatever, and they, they'll just make these statements and we're supposed to obey them, and then they have people they look up to who are way more authoritarian, way more whatever. It's kind of like, oh, you Catholics, you just, if blank told you to do blank, you do it unquestionably. And these people are like, well, my doctor told me to do whatever. My doctor said to do blank. Yeah, like it's like you're just playing musical chairs. You're not being fair, he's saying, because you're neither devout nor too far away. You're one of those people who's like, I was raised Catholic. I don't believe it all. So let me tell you all about Catholicism. It's like, let me tell you all about Republicans. Let me go ask Democratic candidates and vice versa. Like, what kind of response are you going to get? Obviously, right? There's nothing more obnoxious than testimony of someone who used to be part of a community. It's actually pretty obnoxious sometimes. Like, I was not raised Mormon, FYI. I'm Catholic my whole life. Yeah. Why am I laughing? Oh, that's for another time. Imagine if I was raised Mormon, right? I'm totally convinced Catholicism is true. It's the church Christ founded. If I was raised Mormon, though, I think I have enough respect for my family not to like start bashing everyone there and acting like I'm an expert at everything. Oh, they're such idiots, blah, blah. That's what he's going against. Is the person who was raised a Christian, an Anglican, or whatever, any kind of Protestant denomination, Catholic, and then proceeds to rip the church while not seeing their own blind spots. Furthermore, point 3, they will suddenly turn around and revile the church for not having prevented the war, which they themselves did not want to prevent, and which nobody ever professed to be able to prevent, except some of the very school of progressive and cosmopolitan skeptics who are the chief enemies of the church. So, yeah, these guys who like pull the strings in the world, think of like G8 leaders, whatever. Think of like, Macron, Trump, Angela Merkel was a huge power broker, but she was Chancellor of Germany, whatever. Imagine just like these types of people, world leaders, whoever, and the rich people and blah, 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 blah. That's easy for them to be like, oh, see, if the church was a force for good, the church would, stop the war. The church doesn't prevent the war. Why doesn't Pope Leo, blah, blah, do this? It's like, because you guys are actually in power in this fallen world and you want the war. You just want to bash the church and pretend like it's the church's fault. So he's starting this introduction kind of roasting all hypocrites left and right. But here's the best point he makes. Point number 4 of my arbitrary numbers. Remember, point 5 is a callback to just don't be lukewarm. I'm going to read this and you guys tell me what it is. By the way, is it 10:15 right now? What time is it? I want to do something for clock.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I've got a ticker on the video. It says 14:17, 14:18, 14:19, 14:67. I'm going to mention I love 6-7. I love 6-7 because it became so popular, right? It became so popular, and then it got to the point where it was so unbelievably obnoxious. And there was a point where people were riding the crest of its popularity and being really cringe about it, and like, oh, I'm cool doing 6-7. And then it became so annoying. Everyone hates it so much. Now is the time to like really lean in. Like 6-7, guys, haha, right? 6-7. Now's the time because now everyone hates it. Now it's cool to like it. Point number 4. The church is justified not because her children do not sin, but because they do. Page 12. What does this mean? This is unbelievably beautiful. This is like Take everything back about Chesterton being obnoxious, whatever. Like, he is a giant of he one of the best writers of the 20th century, certainly Christian writers, for quotes like this. The church is justified not because her children do not sin, but because they do. What does that mean? The church is justified not because we don't sin, but because we do. The church is justified. Well, justified in what, you might ask? Justified in claiming, like, this is the church Christ founded. Be in this bar. This is Peter's bark. There's no salvation outside the church. Become Catholic. The church is justified in claiming that. I'm Mr. Atheist. I show up to a church. Why should I join this church? There's all these disgusting sinners here. They suck. And he's saying, like, that's why you should join the church. Exactly. Not because everyone's perfect here. In fact, some communities will go to exorbitant lengths, right? To be like, in our church, everyone is good, right? In our church, we're just a community of really good people. And you should be like, your church is in a Payless shoe store, like, that's already F immediately. But a lot of communities try to be like, everyone knows who Joel Osteen is, right? No one doesn't know who Joel Osteen is, right? Plot twist. Joel Osteen is going to be considered the St. Paul of our generation. Plot twist. He gets so much thing. He's actually secretly, like, amazing. I don't know. Joel Osteen gets a lot of flack. If anyone does not know who this is, Joel Osteen is this mega church pastor associated with the prosperity gospel, etc., etc. I can't judge anyone. Christ says, do not judge anyone good or bad. I have nothing to say. May God bless and have mercy upon Joel Osteen. I imagine at one of those, like, prosperity churches, maybe that's not even fair calling his that, but if it is a prosperity gospel church, God wants you to be rich. All God is asking you to do is just say, what you want. He'll give you cars and yachts, and God wants you to be happy. There is this emphasis on, like, we're a community of saints already. I went and did my altar call, accepted Christ, my Lord and Savior. My life is perfect now. I have no problems. I used to be bad. Now I'm good. It's kind of super simplistic stuff. What is he saying? That, no, you should join the Catholic Church because the people suck. Let me tell you about the 10th century Pope who dug up his predecessor and put his corpse on trial. And he had like 6,000 mistresses. Like, this is why you should become Catholic, is the divine institution of the church against which the gates of hell won't prevail, have not prevailed despite its own members being so corrupt and bad. What is the point? Anyone want to give a shout out to Pope Francis? Everyone knows Pope Francis is not Pope anymore, right? All right, good. It's like some people in some like liberal left-wing Catholic magazines write as if he's still Pope, but it's like he's not Pope anymore. Pope Francis talked about the church as a hospital of sinners. That's the point, right? Pope Francis talked about, not just him, but many popes. Life itself is a battlefield where we're wounded, the valley of tears. So we need to come back. So the church is justified. It's a brilliant point. It's so true. And if that's all we talked about in the whole class today, it would be enough. The reason you should become Catholic, the reason you should turn to Christ, the reason you should seek the higher things is because you're wounded. That's exactly right. And in fact, I don't mean to rip Calvinists and Puritans, but that was one of their problems. The Puritans come over and they're like, well, I'm part of this elect. I'm part of this, predestined elect on earth. Well, why do I still do bad stuff? They think that, once I have this, like, if I'm predestined, this kind of perseverance of the saints, everything in my life will be perfect. Again, we're part of the elect. The world is reprobate, and the witches, Salem witch trial, we'll burn them. They're bad. We're the good guys, and the good guys, we never backslide. Whatever. Anyone ever read Scarlet Letter? Scarlet Letter is the greatest denouncement of Puritanism. Why? Because the main character in the what is his name? Dimsdale, is that it? Or what's the main preacher's name? I know Hester Prynne. I think Dimsdale, Hester Prynne is the girl that he has an adulterous affair with. But it's like Dimsdale, like, I'm head of this community of the elect, and yet he's an adulterer. How I can't square those two things. If he's Catholic, he'd be like, oh, I get it, of course. I need to go to confession. Not problem solved, and God have mercy, he doesn't do that again. But, like, he understands sin. Like, we fall all the time. It's not a one-time kind of deal. Our Protestant friends who are the most kind of antinomian, who are like, I did the altar call, never sin again. It's the exact same problem. Is there Of course there's backsliding. You backslide I think the Psalms say, some part of the Old Testament, the just man falls 7 times a day. But so the puritanical guys couldn't handle this. They go insane. So you get like the Great Awakening. You get the kind of crazy mass revivals. The mass revivals, when they fill the stadium and the kind of Billy Graham stuff, is just we can't go to confession. That's all that is. We can't. I have this guilt. I don't know what to do. I got to go like and flip out in the stadium and have this great music. It's what it is. Where it's like the confessional is waiting for you. Nathaniel Hawthorne, the author of Scarlet Letter, grew up in New England, spent a lot of part of his life there. Goes to Europe and he's like, wow, Catholicism is so legit. But he couldn't get over he couldn't cross it. But he was very drawn to that. Oh yeah, right, dude. You're just saying that. His daughter Rose Hawthorne was a nun, I think, and her cause for canonization is pending. I don't want to misspeak on that. I tread lightly on that. But his daughter became a nun. All that kind of stuff. That's the point he's making. The church is true because we're sinners, not in spite of that. Point number 6, page 14. It is exactly when the boy gets far enough to see the giant that he sees that he really is a giant. He wants us now not to leave our Catholicism, God forbid, in an apostasy sense. He wants us to leave our Catholic comfort and say, next time you guys go to coffee hour, imagine you showed up after Mass and you're from Mars. You're an alien. You don't even know what people do. How would you investigate this community? Like, what did you guys do? What did you do? What is Mass? See it with these fresh eyes. That's the great comment, Loretta. Thank you. Right? If you spend it's seeing the forest for the trees. If you spend your whole life in the shadow of the giant, you don't have the scale. When you go far away, you actually see. He says a double confirmation. You thought the giant was a giant while you're next to the giant, or while you're in the church community. Once you saw it with fresh eyes from far away, you realized it's a giant. Like it is what I always thought, and that's a very comforting thing. Oh, everything the church. How many people have gone through that experience? I was raised Catholic. I did a bunch of crazy stuff in school, college, and then when I reverted when I was age 31, I realized my parents were right all along. The church was true, right? Like that kind of experience. I used to think the church was right when I was 15 because my parents made me go to Mass, but the giant was right here. When I went and did a bunch of crazy stuff and saw it from far away, then I realized, oh yeah, it's the exact same thing. It really is a giant. That's the kind of approach he wants to take in this book. Let's pretend that we're seeing it kind of from far away. What is he doing with the book? I have divided this book into 2 parts. The form being a sketch of the main adventure of the human race, insofar as it remained heathen. And the second summary, the real difference that was made by it becoming Christian. Brilliant. No cutesy Prince of Paradox type nonsense here. Just very, very well said. It's a very simple book. Pre-Christian, post-Christian. And, right, let me repeat again. The second is summary of the real difference that was made by it becoming Christian. So it's not just like this woman was born Allison Lawson and she married a guy named Brent Davis. Now she's Allison Davis. Whatever. Great. Like, why does it matter that she's Allison Davis? Like, what's the import of that? It's not just there was a heathen world, a pre-Christian world, and a Christian world, and that's life. Like, why does it matter? What did Christianity actually change? Chesterton, I'm on page 18 and 19. My arbitrary number is 8, 9, and 10. Still part of the introduction. He's really obsessed with horses. Like, it's pretty creepy, actually. Like, he needs professional help. He needs horses are awesome. He needs professional help to deprogram from an equestrian obsession. Like, he's really like, what is he talking about with horses? Isn't there a famous line in some Meg Ryan movie when she says horses, horses, horses? Some kind of movie. What is that? Anyone know what that is? It was made into a meme. I do not think it's from my favorite Meg Ryan movie, which is Sleepless in Seattle. I think it's a different movie. What does he like about horses? What is he saying about horses? That you're a fan of horses. Yes, horses are beautiful animals. Horses have captured, especially the American imagination, cowboy, the settlement of the West, all that kind of stuff. He's like, he does a beautiful quote where he says, I was talking to a guy, remember, Chesterton's life is 1874 to 1936. And this book is written in 1925. I actually got a shudder down my spine when I read blah, 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 and the war. And I realized he was talking about the First World War. He had the Second World. He dies in 36. He dies 3 years before Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union invade Poland in 39, all that. His war is the Great War, which I, as a historian, as I mentioned many times, I think it's the most important event in the past 500 years. I think the First World War is more important than the Second, despite the Second having more awful stuff and higher death count. He's in the shadow of the Great War thinking, we'll never do that ever again. Duh, obviously. Right? It's 1925. In America, the Roaring 20s. The war is the Great War. And he's saying he's talking to a guy, and remember, the Wright brothers' flight, Charles Lindbergh crossing the Atlantic solo, I think it's 2 years after the book was published, 1927. So it's the very early time of aviation. Hindenburg in that famous disaster, God rest their souls, 1936, I think perhaps. So it's early aviation. He says, he's talking to some guy, and some guy's like, it's crazy people are flying, right? Isn't that sick? And he's like, he responds like, oh, well, actually what's crazier is a horse lets a guy sit on him and ride him. And, most people would be like, that's not that crazy. People have been riding horses forever. It's like, but that doesn't take away the monstrosity. And I use that word specifically, intentionally. Listen. As it is with the monster that is called a horse, so is the monster that is called a man. Of course, the best condition of all, in my opinion, is always to have regarded man as he's regarded in my philosophy. He who holds the Christian and Catholic view of human nature will feel certain that it is universal and therefore a sane view, and will be satisfied. But if he has lost the sane vision, he can only get it back by something like a very mad vision. That is, by seeing man as a strange animal and realizing how strange an animal he is. Yes, guys. And habits, I think I still have in my backpack. My backpack is a disgusting quagmire of so much stuff. But out of the muck, I pull out Walker Percy, Signposts in a Strange Land. Let me just read it. This is awesome, guys. Like this is the only stuff you get in maple syrup history. I'm literally going to randomly, because I love postmodernity so much, open up Walker Percy and read a sentence randomly. Ready? Mm-hmm. Page 241. Among the large group of movie magazines, class distinctions have arisen, dictated by three price divisions, 10, 15, and 25 cents. Where else can you get that? Or else you're just kind of picking up a book and randomly reading it in the middle of other book discussion. That's seriously so cool. I take back what I said about me not being cool before. That's really cool. Walker Percy, we're not reading this book I'm going to reference now, but Walker Percy wrote a book that I encourage all of you to read called Lost in the Cosmos. Lost in the Cosmos is a parody on self-help, okay? It's a parody on self-help. And in that book, his entire thesis, in fact, he starts taking it in a kind of sci-fi direction, is that man is an alien. We are a monster. We are strangers in a strange land. Signposts in a strange land. When Percy was obsessed with I honestly think, like grandfather, grandson. Or, well, he was born in 1916, so maybe dad, maybe grandfather, I don't know, whatever. Young grandfather, old dad, whatever. I really think Walker Percy was very influenced by Chesterton. And I'm sure I'm not the first person to make this connection, but when I was reading Lost in the Cosmos, which we will not read, and having read Orthodoxy, which we're also not reading, but those two books are basically the exact same book. Both Walker Percy and Chesterton say, we know so much about the whole cosmos, we know so much about science, look how medicine has evolved. We still know just as much as the Greeks do about how to be happy. I mean, talk about Allison Davis, the change. What has Christianity brought? No, we know, thank God, because Christ is Lord and Christ showed us. The Word was made flesh and dwelt among us. God came and taught us how to live. So we know the answer to happiness is in the Gospels. We have that the Greeks didn't have, thank God. But in a general sense, like if I'm a secular person who doesn't know who Christ is, I'm walking around, I have as much idea of happiness as the Babylonians did. I don't know, like I'm going to try to do my thing, have fun. Yeah, gain power. I don't know. So it's like, this is the second important point, guys. Okay? Remember the first point. We're dominating now. We are dominating, okay? Shout out to Viola, Idaho. We are crushing. Shout out to Potlatch. Like if we were a military campaign, we just conquered Potlatch with these comments. Because we're 9 points in, and yet we have two huge points to remember. Two huge points. What are the first two huge points in introduction? Number one was, do not be lukewarm. If you want it, let's pretend we're all nuns, N-O-N-E-S. We're aliens. Let's step back and see it with fresh eyes. Thank God while we retain our devout faith. May God help us be always devout. The best way to understand the Christian faith is to be Christian. May God grant us the grace to be so. But let's, for fun, step back and imagine. I just showed up from like Mongolia. I don't know. I just showed, pick your favorite. Mongolia is not that isolated, let's be honest. I just showed up from like North Idaho, like the most middle of nowhere place. They don't even have electricity. I don't know. And like, I'm just going to like show up and like, is North Idaho more rural than Mongolia? Me? I think it is. I was up by Priest River. There are some people that it's like, I think you might think it's 1720, man. Like, I was talking to some guy at a gas station. I'm like, do you understand like what America is? Like, do you realize? Yeah. Anyways, Matt, like point number one is to show up and have that totally unbiased view far away where we see that which I always thought was a giant. But here's the second important point, is that we should understand we are monsters. That's a beautiful thing. The moment you look at us only as animals, the moment you turn the atheist dial up to 10 and be like, we're just, we're nothing but animals, we're exactly the same as lions and tigers, and all that, is the moment that refutation comes in strong. Anyone who read, and by the way, guys, FYI, forever, like, anyway, whoever's new, I hope you're here all the time, you never ever have to read for this class. Everyone understands that, right? If this class was for credit, I'd still say that. Like, this class is so, I read it with copious notes. Please let that never be a deterrent to coming to class, if you so choose to come. That, obviously. But did anyone read and see how he argues this? Man is a monster. Brad, thank you so much. The book he has says it's consciousness, but what was the main thing? Remember, what was the main thing that he said that shows that we are really aliens, monsters, different? Humanity cannot be looked at in a purely Darwinistic sense. What did he say? What was the main evidence? Starts with an A, and it ends with a T, and there's only one more letter, and it's R. Yeah. How'd you guess that? It's amazing.
That's my husband's name.
It's your husband's name? You are seriously on fire. It's amazing. That's so awesome. No, for real. That's so legit. Your husband, like, yeah, wow. That's amazing. Like, you're an artist. My name is art. I embody art. Like just get out of my face. I don't have time for this. Like, that's a true artist. Yeah. And I'll cover this from the main points. We're on page 20. We're only on page 40 today. But he basically says the caveman has gotten this real bad reputation. Oh, the caveman just is brute, whatever. What's that based on? It's based on nothing but modern sensibilities of progress. It's based on nothing more than 1880s and 90s people and 1900 people, turn of the century then, all the people of his era who fashioned themselves, I'm not joking, because we have telegraph and trains and science, and now we're getting, people to fly with the airplane. We're obviously so much better than the caveman. He probably was just a super brutish ape. Obviously he evolved from whatever the Cro-Magnon, what's it called? Cro-Magnon man? I don't know. What's the actual term? Neanderthal, yeah, whatever they're called. He was just a super hairy, super jacked, kind of gorilla guy. It's like, in the Flintstones, in the Flintstone cartoons. By the way, memory is a crazy thing. Anyone remember the Flintstone vitamins? You could bite; those were tasty. Nobody ever followed the recommended amount. They might have well just said chew. They're in the food pyramid. They're at the bottom where you have to have 8 to 11 servings. They should just put on the Flintstone vitamins take 2 every dinner, but LOL really, as many as you want. Just like the Flintstone thing, the caveman is a brute. No, he makes his point. Man is a monster in a good way, because if you go and look at the cavemen, the only thing we actually know about these guys is that they were artists. That's actually all we know about them. Maybe they were very brutish and awful and terrible and had terrible morals. That Chesterton emerges out of Victorian England that would offend the height of the kind of stereotypical moral society. Victorian England, everything's repressed and no one talks about stuff. Maybe they would be offended, but actually the only thing we know, there's no cave drawings about caveman misogyny or whatever, or something like that. There are drawings about the deer and stuff and the stream and the water. All we know is that, and no animals do this. And this is precisely what our man Walker Percy, who is my favorite author of all time, I do mean that sincerely, no jokes. I think he's the best Catholic author. I did a whole thing last class. He's better than Flannery O'Connor, though she's awesome herself. That's Percy's whole thing, is that this thing emerges like that. Whatever you want to call it, we call it the soul, right? This kind of this divine mark of God. If you look at the Catechism, you read through the Catechism, why are we made in the image likeness of God? That's primarily in the soul. Certainly, since the time of the Incarnation, like as Christ is true God and true man, we are not just in-souled creatures. We are body and soul. We are very we're unity. But it is our soul that bears that divine mark. The soul does not evolve. That's another huge point of his introduction here. The soul does not evolve. Dolphin, fish, and he makes a point here. He's like, kind of like, right, music. It's not like, well, Mozart came around and we did really, but dolphins were doing like, freestyle beatbox and they had some music. It wasn't that good, Dolphins, we have the beautiful calligraphy of Chinese garden art, but like badgers, they do some stuff. Their penmanship's just garbage. It's like doctor penmanship. Like, no, it's not. The humans are the only ones to do this stuff. There's a chasm separating us. Are humans animals? They are. We share our biological realities very much with them, but it's the soul, the intellectual stuff. That's so much what he's getting at in this first chapter. Here's another important point. What does this mean? Point 11 of my made-up numbers on page 20, not a made-up number, a real number. Quote, we should admire the chivalry of the Chinese conception of a god who fell from the sky to fight the dragons and save the wicked from being devoured by their own fault and folly. What was he getting on with that? Let me quote again. We should admire the chivalry of the Chinese conception of a god who fell from the sky to fight the dragons and save the wicked from being devoured by their own fault and folly. What's up with that? Anyone remember that point? That, by the way, takes us out to our part 1 of the creature called man, the man in the cave. We're sticking to our 40 pages today, but just in the book, if you have a different version, that's near the end of that introduction. What he's saying is, it's amazing. How many people know this? How many people know who hear Christianity and they're just like, curtain? People who hear anything about Christ, oh, nope, I know all about that. I'm that lukewarm person. But if you told them, I have a crazy story to tell you. This is so sick. There's this Korean story. It's like K-pop. There is this God. He's God, but he's actually like a guy. He's like a hero. And he came to Earth, and people sucked. They were so awful. And this guy came, and he taught them all this awesome stuff. It was amazing. The teachings are incredible. And then, because he's so selfless, he died for them. But the craziest thing was, this K-pop guy, when he died, he actually came back, and he comes back at the end of the story. People will be like, that's freaking so cool. It's my favorite story, right? What am I getting at? What's the problem here? What point is he making, which I think he's so right?
It's the same story.
People know Christianity is true, just our culture has so poisoned us. I'm not going to lie. One of Chesterton's famous quotes, God bless him, is the greatest argument against Christianity is Christian people. And it's so true. Oh my gosh, let me tell you as someone who sucks, 100%. People suck, like wicked bad. I recently heard sorry for laughing, but I recently heard of a guy who got arrested for doing extraordinarily sketchy bad stuff. Like he was at a protest doing like goon stuff, like fighting people with like a mask or something, like just really bad stuff. Just being a total like fill in your favorite expletive, right? And in his statement after, he's like, oh, he just wants everyone to know that he's a Christian who loves Jesus. It's like, dude, you are seriously, like, you are taking God's name in vain doing that. I can't judge if you're a Christian or not. Maybe you are, I can't judge. But you're giving Christians a bad name. Like, you're literally saying unintentionally, that might be true. You might really love Jesus and you just had a bad whatever. But like, you went to some kind of protest. I don't know if he's like alt left, alt right, whatever, and just fight people. You're literally like, when Christ says, those who live by the sword die by the sword, you're ignoring all that and fighting people and saying awful stuff. Oh, but I just want you to know I love Jesus. You're saying basically this is what Christians are. That sucks. That sucks, right? Or how many politicians who support a policy awful are like, oh, well, actually, it's my Christian faith that says this is a good thing. And we all know this is a terrible thing. Stop saying you're a Christian. This is making people think this is what Christians believe. People have gotten poisoned with what Christianity is. If they were to hear the story of this Chinese god, they'd be like, oh, this is so sweet. It's the East. Oh, yeah, it's so amazing. Eat, pray, love. Well, this just proves, he says, Christianity is true. It is the greatest story of all time. Like John 3:16, that God so loved the world. But we have to get past our own biases. We have to step back, right? This, again, is the first point I made, the lukewarm people who can't see the forest and the trees. Oh, but my mom, and my aunt with Christianity, so blah, 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 I can't tell you how many people, like, have gone off to college, become atheist, and they just, like, try to substitute Christianity with other stuff. Oh, yeah, but I'm all about, this thing, which is, like, this selfless thing. It's like, I get it. You just can't associate with Christianity because of the empoisonment of that in your life. Well, that's too bad. This is This is great. Talks about the abrupt and angular words, the kind of like, I have noticed that if you put a word like God in the same sense as a word like dog, people just like, it's so true. Like, how many people, anyone ever see like a post-game interview where someone's like, I got to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I submit that to God. That's on the one hand very, very beautiful. Thank God for that open profession of faith. Christ did also say though, like pray with a closed door and don't like the trumpet blowers, like whatever. So I honestly don't know how I feel about that. I 100% support public declarations of faith in Christ. Matthew 10:32, whoever acknowledges me, I'll acknowledge, deny before the Father. We absolutely, if someone asks you, are you Christian? Absolutely, and praise God. And I will say that publicly. My Christian faith is the most important part of my life. I don't know how I feel about the post-game interview stuff. I do know this is true and very funny. Imagine if you're sitting at like a table of secular colleagues, and you're all businessmen. You're just like hanging out and talking in a coffee shop. Someone says, guys, what do you think like God's plan is? Like the word God, just like right away, like what? He once again is saying like everyone knows this. This is written on all of our hearts. We can all sit around pretend we're good secular boys and girls, and we don't talk about faith. If just seriously, just be in like a thing and just say, oh yeah, by the way, Jesus, like just that name, that the calling out to the reality that this is the Messiah, this is the Savior. He makes the point. Everyone kind of has that understanding, and it stops people kind of in their tracks. What is he? Anyone get the part about talking about miracles and time? Slow versus fast. This is very, very funny. So again, remember when he's writing in 1925, and he really grew up in the very post-Darwinistic era. Darwin wrote his Origin of Species in 1859. A lot of the Darwinists, including the famous atheists like Richard Dawkins, will say, well, yeah, I understand the universe can't create itself. I understand when people think that calls for God. And he's right, it does. Well, but maybe the universe like really slowly created itself. He says here, but this notion of something smooth and slow, like the ascent of a slope, is a great part of the illusion. It is an illogicality as well as an illusion. An event is not any more intrinsically intelligible or unintelligible because of the pace at which for which it moves. For a man who does not believe in a miracle, a slow miracle will be just as incredible as a swift one. It's so true. The Greek witch may have turned sailors to swine with a stroke of the wand, but to see a naval gentleman of our acquaintance looking a little more like a pig every day, till he ended up with 4 trotters and a curly tail, would not be any more soothing. It might be rather more creepy and uncanny. Yeah. Hey man, I mean like the fact that you think a witch can turn you into a pig is ridiculous. But yeah, Tony looking more like a pig, that's normal. Like Tony's turning into a pig in a slow way. That's cool, obviously. And then he says, the medieval wizard may have flown through the air from the top of the tower. Boom, right? But to see an old gentleman walking through the air in a leisurely and lounging manner would still seem to call for some explanation. Yeah, no one's going to be like, oh man, Dave is, walking 20 feet off the ground in the air, but he's doing it really slow, so it's cool. It's like, it actually would be freaking extremely creepy, Dang, okay, yeah. Consider yourself roasted, right? I mean, this is seriously so freaking stupid. Evolution, people turn from like bunnies or whatever, like very, very slowly. Very slowly, okay? That's how you do it. It's seriously so freaking dumb. Like, I either can like materialize like a piece of bread in my hand right now, or I can't. I can't be like, I'm really working on it real slowly, guys. Like, there's one grain of flour. It's just so dumb. But he's exactly right. And look at him not being a hypocrite. He's like, you have to step back and see the giant from far away, and then you see, oh right, okay. Some of these things really do not make sense. The ultimate question is why they go at all. Anybody who really understands that question will know that it has always been and always will be a religious question, or at any rate a philosophical or metaphysical one. Yeah. On the origin of species, why we exist versus not at all is a question for religion, not science. I don't have to tell all of you good, very brilliant people and devout people, there is no conflict between religion and science. There can't be, right? God is the master of all things. Science is just the way God designed the natural world. Scientists discover why or how something works, but the why of it, like why does it work at all, is a question for religious people. And this has been debunked for a long time. Very recently too, it's come out that like actually ton of scientists are either straight religious, like they're believers, or they're agnostic. They don't know. Like that's been widely misrepresented. Like 98.2% of scientists are like militant, hardcore atheists. That's not true. That might make up like 10 or 15%. The vast majority actually are either believers or they're like, I'm open to the idea. I don't know. And in fact, that last part, that's not, I hope for the sake of their soul, they become believers, but that's actually respectable for science. Like, I don't know. Because right, if your whole life is science, which I hope it's not, I hope you don't make an idol out of science, but if all you do is science can't tell you about God. It doesn't talk about God. It talks about just the way things work. Now, granted, praise God. I encourage anyone to look up like Eucharistic miracles and these kind of things where science confirms this higher realm and stuff. That's beautiful. But that's doing like the scientific method, a hypothesis, and testing things after the fact. You can't develop a algorithm or some kind of mathematical thing to prove God. There's some total tool bag guy who's like, I'm going to solve the world's problems with math. And it's like, I don't even, just go play more video games, dude. Like, that's a better, easier time. You know, it's like, I mean, everything is mathematical. Anyone hate math? Like math? Any thoughts on math? Not a fan of math? Why are you not a fan of math?
I don't know. I liked math to a certain point, I think, when it made sense.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
I
still
relate to it well, I guess.
Yeah. I'm with you. I got a 20% in high school trigonometry. I took a class when I was in college. I went into college already as a history major, right? And I have, I have this PhD. I'm so smart. I'm so genius. I took a class in first year of college that was literally called math. Like not algebra. It was like math, you're an idiot. Like it was like numbers, you know. We worked on, guys, the number one thing we worked on was what comes first, 6 or 7. We've learned all about 6, 7. The whole class is dedicated to 6, 7.
I understand a little bit of math as long as you don't throw numbers in there.
Exactly. Brad, this is, again, Your Highness, this is why you are an absolute king amongst men. Exactly. Brad says, this is a quote of the day, I understand a little bit about math as long as you don't put numbers in there. True. Yeah, just do like cosine and sine, whatever that means. The trigonometry stuff, whatever. Just don't put numbers on it. Yeah. I was in a science class in high school and some guy once talking about balancing an equation. And it seemed like he just made up numbers. He just was like, by the way, 16 over 5. You know, it's like, I'm with you. Please don't put numbers in there.
Well, it's arithmetic that gets me.
Yeah.
I couldn't have got anywhere without the slide rule and calculator.
Thankfully now we have ChatGPT and online calculators and everything, yeah. You know, guys, spoiler, I'm actually really good at math. I'm really good at math. I'm working on a mathematical theory of everything. The secret chamber of rock, I'm that guy. I was trolling myself. I'm the guy who's going to solve everything with numbers, but should probably play more video games. The secret chamber of rock, when illuminated after its long night of unnumbered ages, revealed on its walls large and sprawling outlines diversified with colored earths. And when they followed the lines of them, they recognized across the vast void of ages the movement and gesture of a man's hand. They were drawings or paintings of animals. They were drawn or painted not only by a man, but by an artist. They showed the experimental adventure spirit of the artists. Yeah, so this is now getting close to the end of our discussion today, but that is what the caveman shows us. All of us at that time, 19th century proud people, we're all Darwinist, scientific method. We have airplanes type people. We have ChatGPT, we have Skype, we have the iPhone 17, whatever, this type of hubris. We're so much better than these idiot cavemen. It's like, well, we don't know if they were smart or not. We know they were good artists. They're probably better artists than the modern art we do now, you know? And so he says here too, right? That people who are scumbag guys, like true misogynist guys, they can be scumbags, he says, but don't insult cavemen. He can surely be a cad without taking away the character of the caveman, about whom we know next to nothing, except what we can gather from a few harmless and pleasing pictures on a wall. Yeah, all we know about the caveman was that he liked to draw animals. And he's a really nice guy, you know? He's the original Bob Ross. You know? That's all we know about. That's all we know about cavemen. And here he's making fun too of like, but by the way, I'm not, no, guys, again, I told you, like last stream we had 65,000 people watching live, including, like I said, Pope Leo always tunes in. And no, so your Holiness, Pope Leo, I'm not going to comment on evolutionary theory. Like, I'm not going to comment on this whole like absolute nonsense where you get the people who are like dinosaurs are fake, the world is 6,000 years old. The people who are like hardcore evolutionists, you don't need God at all. Oh, and the Catholic people try to square the circle and be like, well, you know, God made everything but evolution. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a mathematician or a scientist. So I can't. I have no. This is not a me adding anything to this discussion. I'm an idiot on these topics. He's making fun of within evolutionary theory, whether he's accepting parts of evolution, natural selection, or not, and he's not making clear that he's taking a strong sense on that. The only thing he's rejecting of evolutionary theory is the evolution of the soul. He's like, no, that's absolute BS. The soul is given by God as a gift, it's a spark, it's a divine spark, and no animals have this, and it's just obvious and duh. Aquinas thought animals had like a vegetative soul. Like your dog has a personality, an anima, an animation, he's animated, and when he dies, he's that spirit, that animated spirit is gone, obviously. But it's not the same immortal soul, obviously, that Christ died for, this rational soul that we have. But he says here, monkeys did not begin pictures and men finished them. Monkeys did not begin pictures and men finished them. Yes, that's what evolution proposed. Like, cavemen have really cool pictures. Like, if you've seen some of that monkey art, I mean, it's pretty good. You know, it wasn't as good, but no, they don't do any art at all. They just fight. Like, there was someone, yeah, I freaking hate AI so much. Someone posted a YouTube short of a gorilla, like, deadlifting 1,000 pounds. Like, the gorilla walks up to the bar and just like deadlifts it and then like breaks the window behind which like these people are standing, and it's like, you're an awful person making this because it's done really well, and it got like 20 million views. It looks real, like crazy scene in San Diego Zoo. Gorilla deadlifts a ton and breaks window. But it's like gorillas can do that. They can just grab like a thing and just like whatever, lift stuff. They don't make art. They don't do art. Okay, they just do not do art. Even this right now, what am I doing? I'm falling into stitches. And I love it. You know, laughter is the best medicine. He says here, alone among the animals, he is shaken with that beautiful madness called laughter. Right? If a gorilla was doing this class, he wouldn't be laughing at all. It'd be all business. You know, animals don't laugh. He'd be so freaking boring. You know, he would just like be grunting the entire time. You have to decipher that crap afterwards. And I was trying to close caption that, so I just grunt, like language undetected. That's what this class would be like. You just don't want to see that.
Well, I agree that animals don't laugh, but I maintain that they do have a sense of humor. Like, you got a cat up on steroids and whacks you on everything.
That's true. That is true. Yeah, that is being done. Yeah, I think you're exactly right. The maliciousness of a cat is not done for any kind of survival technique or even to. It's done for comedy. It's just like it's like I hate how long this guy takes to get my food ready. You know, it's like whatever. Yeah, I hate cats so much. Anyone a cat person? Who's a cat person? I'm glad no one's admitting it. Kind of.
I like cats.
You like cat? Well, I like them now too. I'm just kidding. I like them. Cats are my favorite animal, actually.
I like dogs, though.
Dogs, yeah, dogs. I grew up with Rottweilers, and my dad, who's the greatest dog owner of all time. Everyone knows what a Rottweiler is, obviously, right? Rottweilers are, I think, they're the most beautiful animal ever.
That explains a lot.
Explains a lot. I used to play a game with my Rottweiler where I would it was called Rottweiler Rodeo. He hated it. We put him in the backyard and throw a tennis ball, and the goal was my dad, my brother, and myself to go tackle him and remove the ball. He hated that game. It was the only time he'd be like growling, because like we're out here being like chased like I'm in a coliseum, like, you know. But our Rottweilers were really great. My dad's a great dog owner, but people were scared of Rottweilers. So my dad would walk the neighborhood and be like, "Oh, this is a Swedish Shepherd," which was not true. Apparently, a Swedish Shepherd. It was so funny. Like, it rose by another name. It's like, it's obviously a Rottweiler. But the moment you tell someone it's a Swedish Shepherd, like, oh, it's fine. Yeah, let's put my head in their head, you know, or whatever. Like, yeah, there's some kind of, you know, cats have some kind of comedy, perhaps. Dogs are amazing. What time is it? Is it 55 already? I think, right?
Yes.
Let's wrap up. You guys are the best. I love this class so much. You know, truly, God bless you guys. You guys are such great people. Does this class make my week better? Like, yeah, you know, like I'm trying to think like that's just a cliche. No, like it really does. It actually really does. Do I cry later in the week that I wish I had more of this class? No, but this class is really great. let's kind of wrap up with something he says here on page 36 of my, it's near the end of the Man in the Cave chapter. So I don't know what that is for you if you have a different version again. It will be well in this place, however, to sum up once and for all what is meant by saying blank. That's pretty good, right? So he's going to give us his thesis. Let's listen. Right? I put triple stars here for this. It will be well in this place, however, sum up once and for all what is meant by saying that man is at once the exception of everything and the mirror and the measure of all things. But to see man as he is, it is necessary once more to keep close that simplicity that can clear itself of accumulated clouds of sophistry. The simplest truth about man, everyone ready? This is the whole deal. The simplest truth about man is that he's a very strange being, almost in the sense of being a stranger on earth. All right, class dismissed. We're going to 2 more minutes of real time, but that's the parting thought I want you to take. We had so many good comments. Thank you for all your wonderful comments. So many great points. That's what he, again, Chesterton, greater sign, me. Like, I'm just his, the analyst of this stuff. What my opinion is irrelevant. This is what he wants you to take away. This is what he wants you to take away for our first discussion. The simplest truth about man is he is a very strange being, almost in the sense of being a stranger on earth. Chesterton says, I believe in orthodoxy, this is a great point, man is the only wild animal.